NFL trade rumors are the focus of today's video here on Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, I'm your host, Trizzy Trace Girouard, and we're going to break down and go through the leaked intel that Dianna Russini recently put out. She had a report with a lot of information, and the NFL trade deadline is right around the corner, so it begs the question, at 1-6, could the Saints get involved? Now, before we share all of the information, I want to encourage you to subscribe to Saints Now by Chat Sports so that way you can get more information, news, and rumors around your team. Plus, we have the best game day coverage across the entire internet. So lock us in for 100% free, turn on your notifications, and subscribe. Now, let's start this conversation off with a player that has been the center of a lot of trade rumors. Wide receiver Chris Olave. A lot of teams are interested in him. There is no mystery, and there's a lot of good reasons for it. And there's a lot of fans out there amongst the Who Dat Nation that are saying, trade him. A lot of them are saying, keep him. What are they going to do? Well, Russini let us know. So according to Russini, the Saints have been working or trying to work out a long-term contract for Chris Olave, despite his name being attached to teams looking for receivers. And I will say for Chris Olave, I think that this would be an interesting decision to say the least. Good or bad, I think that it is something that can at least peel back the curtain and give us a look at what the plans are for the future. Chris Olave clearly is a part of the long-term plans, according to Dianna Russini's report. And Olave was asked about this, and he even said, we have been having conversations since the beginning of the year. And it is worth noting an extension doesn't have to happen immediately. He is under contract because the Saints picked up his fifth-year option, so they have him this year and they have him next year, so an extension could come at any time, but it doesn't have to happen right now, and it's not like the Saints have to trade him right now. You still have his rights throughout the entire offseason. Now, for Chris Olave, he has been a player who has been really, really productive when he's been on the field in his first 2 years. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. We really thought that we had a star in the making with Chris Olave. Then last season, injuries decimated his career, or not his career, but his season, and we only got to see him in 8 games. Only 1 touchdown, 400 yards. But this year, after having some drop issues, he had a big resurgence against the Bears this past week, and he's a player that I think has a really good opportunity to continue to build forward momentum and positive momentum to try to earn a large contract. Now, why would you keep Olave? Why would you trade him? Let's have the conversation. Because if you were to trade Chris Olave, it would hurt the QB development. Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, Jake Haener, Hunter Deckers, Drew Brees, Uncle Rico, doesn't matter. If you trade Chris Olave, if you trade Rashid Shaheed, if you trade any wide receiver for that matter, it will hurt the development of the quarterback because that's one less target, and especially if it's Olave, it's a high-level target and a high-level player on the offense. It's one of the best weapons that side of the football has, so trading him away would be a little bit of a risk in that regard because then you get the rest of the season without your top offensive receiving weapon. And not to mention, he is still a player that's young and has a lot of upside. But why would you trade him? It is a fair question to ask. The Saints only have 5 picks in this upcoming NFL draft. So in order to try to recoup some of those draft picks that you've traded away for players like Devon Godshaw, Devon Vele, well, 2 Devons. I did just put that together. Devon Godshaw, Devon Vele. I also made a trade for Jalen Polk. So there's a lot of moves that have happened over the last handful of weeks since training camp and since the preseason. So if you were to trade Olave away, you'd be able to regain some of that draft capital back, which you definitely need for a team that's in the midst of a rebuild, has a lot of roster holes. You also could put off paying a wide receiver 1 contract like $30 million a year. You could push that away and push that down the road a little bit, not having to pay somebody that money. You could replace him, draft another guy, which you should do either way, and pay that money in a few years down the road and potentially offer Shaheed a little bit more money as well. So there is a lot of ways you could go about this. Now, I don't know what I would do, so I'm going to ask you the question. Trading him or extending him, both could make some sense. What would you do? Put on your Mickey Loomis hat, type T for trade, type E for extend, and share your thoughts in the comment section. Now, we got some more trade buzz to discuss from Dianna Russini because apparently a lot of teams are making some phone calls for edge rushers and cornerbacks, and I think that the Saints could potentially exploring trading away a corner or corner or an edge rusher. We're going to have that conversation. First things first, got to thank today's presenting sponsor, and that is Tushy, the everyday luxury bidet. It's absolutely transformed my bathroom, and it's made my time on the porcelain throne so much better. And look, the Saints are a crappy team. But when you say they're a crappy team, it doesn't have that same sting. Now that I use a bidet, and although New Orleans is rebuilding, it's never too soon to plan for Super Bowl season. Installing a Tushy bidet makes bathroom visits so much more comfortable for your guests and your pipes, and every Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. It's so easy to use. You drop, plop, sit, and cleanse, and dry using the built-in air dryer. That's right, cleaning yourself after using the bathroom is now hands-free. You don't need to be an expert in trade to install your Tushy bidet. I am not an expert with plumbing. I am not an engineer. I don't have an electrician background. I'd like to say it's so easy that a Falcons fan could install it. Now remember, a-hole is only a dirty word if you wipe, so for a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their order of their first bidet when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code CHAT. The link is clickable in the comments and description of this video. Keep that hiney shiny with a Tushy bidet. Now, Dianna Russini has put out reports that there are teams interested in edge rushers. There's teams interested in cornerbacks. There's a lot of teams interested in just defensive players as a whole. And I do think there are a handful of players that could be on the move. One name that we're not going to discuss in this video, but we have discussed before and will continue to talk about is Pete Werner. I could see him being a linebacker that gets moved because you're seeing the rise of Danny Stutzman and Jalen Ford and Isaiah Stallbird, and you're starting to see Pete Werner's usage get a little bit less. But we're not going to talk about Pete Werner. We're here to talk about edge rushers and corners. Now, in terms of edge rushers or teams looking for edge rushers, this is who Russini had to say. We're making some phone calls. The Niners, the Lions, the Eagles, the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. And now, obviously, these are all teams that either have a massive need or need an upgrade or you need to replace an injury. But I do think that when it comes to trading a player in terms of the New Orleans Saints, there are 3 or 4 names, or a handful of names at least, that come to mind. The first one is Carl Granderson. Now, for me personally, I would trade Grando for the right price. I really can't appreciate all of the great things he's done as a New Orleans Saint, and I do think if you were to trade him away, the pass rush would suffer right now. But that being said, if you can turn a UDFA into a draft pick, I'm going to say this for Granderson, not for Rashid Shaheed. That's the exception. Don't twist my words against me. You can take advantage of a good opportunity and turn a UDFA signing into a draft pick. And look, teams are going to pay for quality edge rushers, and he's a guy who's had some really good moments throughout his NFL career. Right now, has 12 pressures, 4.5 sacks, a pass rush grade of 56.1 according to Pro Football Focus, and that's not something that's going to jump off the screen, but he is somebody that could provide some juice to a rotation. He's somebody that could fulfill a need due to an injury, and maybe he's somebody that could be an extra guy for a team that's needy for an edge rusher who needs some more pass rush help. A couple other names that come to mind, Cam Jordan. He's been a name that's been linked in trade rumors as well. And for what it's worth, I don't think that Cam Jordan's going anywhere unless he specifically requests a trade. He's been very, very open. He wants to be a Saint for life. He wants to be here forever. There was chatter last year that he wanted to get out of New Orleans. He wanted to trade. He obviously did not do that, and he ended up getting the ability to retire here in New Orleans. I don't think that he's going anywhere. He is going to be a name that's in the midst of a lot of trade buzz because he's a really good name, and he is a player at one point in time was very dominant. But I do think that he is going to inevitably be a Saint for life because he has not shied away from that. Now, Chase Young, he's a player I want to discuss as well because although you have the ability to trade away Granderson, this would put more pressure on Chase Young. And I want to make one thing clear. Obviously, it was really frustrating waiting for him to get back on the field due to the calf injury, but he has been contributing. And this past week, especially against the Bears, I mean, he got in the face, almost had a pick six at the beginning of the game against the Patriots, who's creating all sorts of pressure. He was a player that he's getting in the backfield. He's creating problems for the opposing defense. He just needs to finish the sacks. And for Chase Young, I think he's a player that the Saints truly do believe in based off of the contract that they paid him. And I know that with him being on the field more, we're going to be able to see it ramp up, and hopefully he can be a more productive player. I do believe in Chase Young. I hope that he can prove me right. That being said, if you're going to be making $17 million a year, you better earn it, and I hope that he can prove the Saints right in that contract. Now, let's go back to Carl Granderson, because that's the player that I think the Saints would end up trading if they were to move an edge rusher. Let me know, what would you want in return? Like, I think a fourth, fifth, I take it. To be honest, like, I mean, the Saints don't have a fourth-round pick. Get your fourth-round pick back. I feel like that's a hard thing to turn down. Let me know what you guys would do. What would you want for a Carl Granderson trade? Now, let's go to the cornerback conversation. 3 teams that Dianna Russini mentioned are looking for corners: the Colts, the Raiders, and the Eagles. Now, obviously, you have a few options here in the cornerback room. Just going through the list of players, you got Quincy Riley, you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, Rajon Wright, Isaac Yiadom, Ugo Amadi, but you also have Alontae Taylor. Now, Alontae Taylor, would you trade him? I don't know. The question you have to answer is he a part of the long-term plan? Is he going to be a centerpiece and a focal point for Brandon Staley's defense? That's something that the Saints need to answer sooner rather than later, because he is in the final year of his contract, and if you don't want to give him a bunch of money in the offseason, if you want to try to save some money, you could look to trade him away. And I'm not advocating to do that, but I do think that he is a candidate who could be somebody that gets moved if there's a team out there who wants a player who's versatile. He can play on the inside. He can play on the outside. He's done a little bit of everything. He's a very vocal player. He's somebody who can provide pass rush ability, somebody who can provide energy and swagger to a defense. So I think that the Eagles would actually make some sense here. I'd hate to see him go to the Raiders because I feel like his career would be even more wasted than it is right now. But I specifically want to say for Alontae Taylor, from a Saints standpoint, I don't necessarily know if they would want to do that right now, because my question is, who replaces him? On the roster, you have Ugo Amadi listed as his backup, and then on the practice squad, you have Jaden Price and Dallas Beenum, but I don't necessarily know if I want those guys being starters. And if you were to trade away Alontae Taylor, the cornerback room in New Orleans gets really, really thin really, really quick. So Alontae Taylor is a player that I'm not saying is on the trade block, but I could see teams having interest in him. He has experience. He's played at a pretty good level throughout his career, and he's somebody that I think still has the ability to develop over time. Now, friendly reminder, the NFL trade deadline is on November 4th. It's just around the corner. We're less than a couple of weeks away. So make sure you subscribe for more coverage. If there's any updates around players getting calls, players getting dealt, or God forbid, if the Saints do make a trade, we're going to go live. So make sure you turn on your notifications, hit the sub button, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.